Kai Cenat is currently the biggest streamer on the planet. He's the face of a new era of fame, turning his bedroom into a global stage for millions of people. But while the world sees a self-made kid from Brooklyn, a theory has taken root in the corners of the internet. People are asking if Kai's rise was a design rather than an accident. The question is simple: is Kai Cenat actually the secret son of Sean Diddy Combs? It starts with something you can't ignore once you see it. If you put a photo of Kai next to a photo of Diddy, the resemblance is jarring. Online theorists on platforms like Reddit say the jawline, eyes, and smile line up in ways that are hard to ignore. And if late-night mysteries like this are your kind of rabbit hole, like the video and subscribe to Sleepwalk Files. Now, look at the two images again. Take another look at these two photographs side by side. The uncanny mirroring of their features is what first sparked the theory of a hidden biological link. Kai and Diddy's faces look almost perfectly mirrored. They call it uncanny. In the world of internet conspiracies, this kind of physical overlap is often the first red flag for an industry plant or something more sci-fi, like a clone. If they're related, it would mean Kai is the heir to one of the most powerful and controversial empires in music history, rather than a lucky gamer. To see if this is a coincidence, you have to look at the calendar. Kai was born on December 16, 2001 in New York City. He grew up in Brooklyn with his mother, while his father remained a far smaller part of the public story. Now, look at where Diddy was exactly 9 months before that birth date. In February 2001, Sean Combs was in New York City. He wasn't there for a concert or a party. He was there for a legal battle. Diddy was facing trial in Manhattan in a case stemming from a nightclub shooting. He appeared in court that February and was eventually acquitted of all charges. The timeline fits. Diddy was in the same city at the same time, acting as a high-flying playboy known for hosting lavish parties and meeting countless women. For theorists, this isn't a random overlap. They see a window of opportunity where a brief encounter in New York could have resulted in the birth of a child 9 months later. If this theory holds, it changes how we view Kai's entire career. It suggests that the resources, the connections, and the ability to command a crowd didn't come from a Twitch algorithm, but from a genetic and professional blueprint passed down from the king of bad boy records. It would mean the come-up was actually a handoff. Kai grew up in Brooklyn with his mother and 3 siblings. He's open about his roots, but when you dig into the specifics of his early life, the details about his biological father are surprisingly thin. In the world of internet sleuthing, a lack of information isn't just a gap, it's an invitation. Theorists on platforms like TikTok and Reddit have seized on this silence. Kai has publicly described his father as Haitian, but the internet has far fewer photographs and stories about him than it has about Kai's mother. Instead of reading that as privacy, believers read it as an empty space where a more famous name could be hidden. This is where the theory shifts from a coincidence to a pattern. The idea is that Diddy didn't just leave a mark on the music industry, but on the next generation of fame. If the father is a ghost, the theorists believe it's because the father is someone too powerful to be named. They suggest Kai isn't just a lucky kid with a camera, but a legacy project. A way for an old guard mogul to maintain a grip on the new wave of influence? But the suspicion doesn't stay in the past. It follows Kai to the West Coast. During his second Mafiathon, Kai streamed from a luxury home in Los Angeles. For most viewers, it was just another high-end backdrop for a subathon. But a few people started looking at the map. They claimed the house Kai was using was located right next to Diddy's own Los Angeles mansion. In the world of luxury real estate, you don't just end up next door to one of the most infamous men in entertainment by accident. To the believers, this proximity is the smoking gun. They don't see a rental agreement or a coincidence, they see a strategic placement. They argue that being physically positioned next to a property that was later the site of federal raids suggests a level of access and protection that a normal streamer wouldn't have. You're placed in the inner circle, physically and socially. It changes how you look at every milestone. When Kai became the first Twitch streamer to surpass 500,000 subscribers during that November 2024 run, theorists didn't see hard work. They saw a managed descent. They imagine a scenario where the industry plant is a literal arrangement, a child placed in the perfect environment, given the perfect tools, and shielded by a powerful shadow. Then, real estate chatter and celebrity gossip added another layer. Reports surfaced that Jennifer Lopez, Diddy's former partner from the 2000s, had been in talks to buy that same neighboring mansion. Most people find the idea of moving in next to an ex-partner a bit psychotic. It's a social nightmare. But for those following the theory that Kai is connected to Diddy, this isn't a coincidence. They see a pattern of coordination. If J-Lo and Kai are both circling the same piece of land right next to Diddy, it suggests a tight-knit inner circle that remains loyal, even during a federal crackdown. It makes the neighborhood look less like a random zip code and more like a coordinated compound. If the geography is a clue, the visuals are a signal. When the Mafiathon stream began, the first thing viewers saw was Kai dressed in all white from head to toe. He wasn't alone. He was presenting to a crowd that was also dressed entirely in white. Shortly after, the rapper Lil Uzi Vert appeared on screen, and he was wearing all white too. To a casual viewer, it looks like a fashion choice or a theme for the event. But for anyone familiar with the history of the music industry, the image is jarring. Diddy is legendary for his all-white parties. These were exclusive events in Hollywood, known for attracting the most powerful people in the world, and shrouded in mystery and later serious allegations. By recreating this specific aesthetic, Kai is picking more than a color. Theorists argue he's making a subtle, public nod to the man who allegedly fathered him. It's like a secret handshake performed in front of millions of people. If Kai is intentionally mirroring the branding of a man currently under federal scrutiny, it changes how we look at his spontaneous content. It suggests the chaos of his streams might be a carefully constructed bridge between the old power structures of Hollywood and the new world of digital fame. But the visual clues are one thing. The personal history is another. On Father's Day, Kai did something he had never done before. He featured a moment on his stream branded as the first time he ever met his father. For a kid who grew up in Brooklyn, with very little known about his dad, this should have been one of the most emotional moments of his life. Instead, people watching the clip felt something was wrong. On social media and in theory circles, viewers pointed out that the interaction felt rehearsed. They described it as lacking organic emotion, like a scripted scene from a show rather than a real family reunion. The man presenting himself as the father didn't seem to carry the gravity or the presence you'd expect from a life-changing encounter. The theory now shifts from a look-alike to a cover story. If the meeting felt fake, the implication is that the man on screen wasn't the real father. Believers argue this stream was a calculated move to close the book on the mystery of Kai's paternity, providing a public answer to stop people from digging deeper into the timeline of his birth. In the old days of Hollywood, powerful figures used non-disclosure agreements and managed narratives to keep their private lives separate from their public images. This is image curation, scrubbing the truth and replacing it with a version that protects the brand. If Kai is being managed by the same kind of power players who built Diddy's world, a staged reunion is a classic tool for damage control. The Father's Day stream was a performance. The question of who Kai's father actually is remains wide open. It suggests the truth is something that needs to be hidden. And if the real father is someone with the resources to coordinate a global image, it leads to one final question. Who is actually funding the rise of the world's biggest streamer? Kai Cenat's audience exploded. He went from making prank videos on YouTube in 2018 to becoming the most followed streamer on Twitch, with over 21 million followers. By 2026, he was the undisputed king of the platform. But for some people watching the numbers, the math didn't add up. They looked at how fast he climbed and saw something that didn't look like organic growth. The red flag for these theorists was Kai's guest list. Usually, a streamer spends years building a network to get a B-list celebrity to stop by for 10 minutes. Kai was bringing in heavy hitters almost immediately. In 2022, he had Bobby Shmurda, Lil Baby, and 21 Savage on his stream. By the time he launched his Mafiathon subathon in early 2023, he was hosting a revolving door of stars like G Herbo, NLE Choppa, and KSI to the casual viewer. This is the result of being charismatic and well-connected in New York, but to the conspiracy community, this is the hallmark of an industry plant. An industry plant is a performer who appears to be a grassroots, self-made success, but is actually funded and steered by a powerful corporate entity or a wealthy mogul behind the scenes. In this case, the theory points to P. Diddy. The idea is that if Kai is Diddy's son, or at least his project, those celebrity doors weren't opened by Kai's talent, but by a phone call from the most powerful man in music. If a mogul is pulling the strings, the self-made story is a script. As the theory spread, it took a turn into the surreal. Some people stopped talking about biological fathers and started talking about biology itself. On YouTube and Reddit, clips began circulating that focused on how Kai looked. Users posted side-by-side comparisons of Kai at different ages, claiming his facial structure shifted in ways that weren't natural. They pointed to specific frames in his videos where his expressions looked off or synthetic. The rumor evolved from a secret family tree into a sci-fi nightmare: the clone theory. The claim is that the person we see on screen isn't the original Kai Cenat, but a biological duplicate. This is a specific kind of internet folklore. These theorists argue that the entertainment industry has access to clandestine technology, artificial duplication, to create perfect influencers who can work 24 hours a day without burning out. They point to Kai's grueling schedule, like his massive subathons where he streams for weeks on end, as evidence. They ask how one human can maintain that level of energy and presence without a replacement stepping in. This follows a pattern seen across the web. Whenever someone achieves a level of fame that feels impossible or too fast, the internet tends to reach for the same tropes. Whether it's a pop star or a streamer, the narrative usually shifts from they have a great manager to they are a corporate product, and finally to they aren't even human. It's a way for people to make sense of a world where the gap between a bedroom in Brooklyn and global superstardom has become almost instantaneous. You accept the clone narrative. The implications are unsettling. It means the person millions of kids look up to is actually engineered software in a human shell, designed to influence a generation. It suggests the rizz and the viral phrases aren't organic cultural shifts, but calculated psychological triggers implanted by a corporate board. If the person on the screen is a duplicate, the real Kai Cenat, the one who dropped out of the State University of New York at Morrisville in 2020, might be somewhere else entirely. Or perhaps he never existed, and the early life stories are just backstory for a product launch. Then a quieter clip gave the rumor a before and after moment. Kai spoke publicly about feeling mentally exhausted and needing space. He did not have the usual volume or restless energy people expected from his streams. Reaction accounts isolated those few seconds and asked why he sounded different. Some viewers said he seemed to be reading from a script. Others went further and claimed the person on screen no longer felt like Kai at all. There's a much simpler reading. Someone talking seriously about burnout will not sound like the same person who is shouting through a challenge stream. Several commentators said exactly that. But clone believers treated the change in tone as a failed performance. A vulnerable moment became evidence of a switch because it gave them two versions of Kai they could place beside each other: the loud public character and the quiet man saying he was struggling. The videos passed around by clone believers follow a familiar ritual. Someone slows a stream down, freezes it between two expressions, and places an older frame beside a newer one. The community began analyzing the footage with a level of obsession that bordered on forensic. By freezing two different expressions side by side, theorists claim to see a biological shift that proves a replacement. They measure the cheeks, the ears, the hairline, and the distance between the eyes, a change caused by lighting, weight, a lens, or ordinary aging becomes a possible seam between two different people. Then the compression breaks around a moving face for half a second, and what would normally be a bad internet connection is presented as the mask slipping. The long subathons make that idea more seductive. Kai can remain live for days while the room, guests, clothes, and camera angles keep changing around him. Believers imagine that the chaos is useful cover. In their version, no duplicate has to fool a person standing 3 feet away. It only has to survive a phone screen, loud music, fast cuts, and an audience watching the chat as much as the face. One performer could leave the room, another could return, and every small difference would be dismissed as exhaustion. That is also what makes the claim impossible to finish. If Kai looks identical, believers call it evidence of a perfect copy. If he looks different, they call it evidence of a switch. If his energy stays high, a replacement must be helping. If he looks exhausted, the process must be failing. Every possible frame leads back to the same answer. The theory does not need a laboratory photograph because it turns the stream itself into a laboratory, with millions of viewers searching every pixel for the moment one Kai becomes another. There is a way to test how much weight this theory can carry. Put the rumor aside for a moment and follow the public trail of Kai's life. It begins in 2018 with awkward, low-budget prank videos. Phantom later brought him into the orbit of AMP. Kai attended Frederick Douglass Academy, graduated in 2019, and spent time at SUNY Morrisville before leaving in 2020 to bet on content full-time. There is no blank stretch where a fully formed celebrity suddenly appears. Old videos show the same young man learning how to hold an audience long before the record-breaking streams. That history is the clearest problem for the clone story. It also gives the Secret Son rumor less room than believers suggest. Kai has publicly described his father as Haitian, and nothing in the public record establishes Diddy as a parent. A matching birth window and two faces that look alike can create a question. They cannot answer it. Yet, the theory did not disappear when those details were added. It became harder to kill. The reason can be seen in two pieces of evidence that were never evidence at all. First came the images claiming federal agents had arrested a clone of Diddy. They copied the visual language of a real news photograph. Hard flash uniforms, a famous face caught at the worst possible moment. The arrest never happened. The images were generated, but by the time fact-checkers traced them, the pictures had already given the clone rumor a physical object people could save, crop, and repost. Then came the claim that Kai had been chosen to play Diddy in a biopic. That announcement was satire. There was no confirmed production and no real casting decision. Still, the screenshot did something important. It placed Kai's face beside Diddy's name in a format that looked official. For anyone who had already seen the side-by-side comparisons, the fake headline felt less like a joke and more like another piece falling into place. Now imagine encountering those fragments in reverse order. You see the fake casting post first, then a slowed clip from a Mafiathon, then the all-white room, then a map claiming Kai streamed beside Diddy's property. Finally, someone shows you the two faces and the February 2001 court date. No single item proves anything, but each one changes how the next item feels. That is the real mechanism keeping both theories alive. The internet does not present the evidence in a clean folder marked documented, disputed, and fabricated. It delivers one image at a time. The correction rarely travels beside the claim. A generated arrest photo can sit next to a real courtroom photograph. A satire headline can sit next to an actual livestream frame. After enough repetition, the border between them becomes difficult to see. The clone theory has one more advantage. It cannot lose. When two frames match, believers see a perfect copy. When they do not match, they see a replacement. High energy means more than one performer must be involved. Exhaustion means the process is breaking down. Even Kai's old school records can be treated as a planted history. Every answer opens another door. So return to the first image, but look at it differently. On one side is a young Sean Combs, photographed before streaming existed. On the other is Kai Cenat, frozen in the middle of a broadcast watched by millions. Their faces do share enough features to make the comparison effective. What the photograph cannot show is blood, a laboratory, a hidden agreement, or a hand guiding a career. The strangest part is that the internet has already manufactured those missing pieces. It produced the arrest image. It produced the casting announcement. It built a story around a mansion, a white outfit, a Father's Day stream, and a date on a calendar. None of that makes Kai Diddy's son. None of it shows a duplicate stepping into the room, but it does show how quickly a second version of a person can be assembled and released beside the real one. The next time Kai appears live, watch the comments when the camera blurs or his face catches the light at a strange angle. Someone will freeze the frame, someone will place it beside Diddy, and for a few seconds, two ordinary images will become the entrance to the same question. Are viewers looking at a family resemblance, a manufactured double, or a rumor that has learned how to create its own proof? If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to Sleepwalk Files to stay up to date with new mysteries and long videos to fall asleep to every night.